Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar on the GSMA Innovation Fund for Digital Urban Services. My name is Alana, and I'm the Senior Market Engagement Director here at the GSMA Digital Utilities Program with Foundation. And we're so glad that you've joined us today to learn more about the now live GSMA Innovation Fund for Digital Urban Services, and specifically today to focus on the role of digital tools within urban energy services. So just to give you an idea of what's in store for today, we're going to give you a bit of an overview to the GSMA, which some of you know well, but maybe new to others. We'll then give you an introduction to our Innovation Fund, and that'll cover some of the key criteria and main elements of the fund. And then we'll go into more of the discussion about digital innovation in energy services. So we'll begin by just presenting an overview of the challenges, some insights from the use cases that we've supported over the years of previous funding. And then looking ahead, what are some of the things we hope to learn coming out of this Innovation Fund? And then we'll hear from some panelists. We'll hear from Andron, who's from formerly Copagas, now Circle Gas. We'll hear from Emma at the Shell Foundation, and we'll hear from Daniel at IntelliCap, all around some of the trends that we're seeing in digital energy services. And then we'll have time at the end for some question and answers and a bit of a wrap up. What I would say is that if you do have questions, however, as we go through, and just on the next slide, we'll show you how to ask your questions. What you can do is put them into the question and answer. If you want to ask questions about the Innovation Fund, we'll try to type answers to you as we go. And if there's anything we haven't answered at the end, we'll come back to those. And then as we get into the panel, feel free to type in your questions for our panelists, and we'll get those as well. Great. So with that, I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction here. So the GSMA is the industry association for the global mobile industry. So that means we represent the interests of over 750 mobile operators, along with 400 companies in the broader mobile ecosystem. And of course, they're all working together to serve the more than 5.2 billion unique mobile subscribers. One of the main things we do at GSMA is we bring people together. We have nearly 200,000 attendees at our worldwide events. And we also provide data points and insights. One way is through our GSMA intelligence database. We're really proud that in 2016, we were the first sector to commit to achieving and supporting the SDGs. And a lot of the work we do towards this is through our Mobile for Development Foundation, where we sit today. So just to tell you a little bit more about Mobile for Development, the work of Mobile for Development that you'll see on the next slide is really to develop digital or support digital solutions that reduce inequalities in our world. And we do this by sitting uniquely positioned between the development sector and the mobile industry, and really looking at how we can drive technology that improves the lives of people. So one of the key ways that we do this is by unlocking private sector action that launches and scales transformative digital technology. And key to doing this work is the support of our partners, which includes a number of donors, as well as our mobile operator members. And key to this particular initiative is the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, which is supporting the programs behind this Innovation Fund and the fund itself. So very grateful for that support. If we move ahead to the next slide, you can see that the programs that are supporting this Innovation Fund are our Digital Utilities Program and our Climate Tech Program. Our Digital Utilities Program, which you may have recently known as the Mobile for Development Utilities Program, now under a simpler name, the Digital Utilities Program, our work is really around supporting urban resilience in low and middle income countries by enabling access to essential utility services through digital utility solutions. And we work hand in hand with our climate tech program, which unlocks the power of digital technology to create a low carbon and climate resilient future. Across these programs, some of our key activities include de-risk innovation. So that's largely through this innovation fund and the past ones that we've done. And we also produce research and insights, which in part draw on the learnings from the grants and the fund, and then more broadly from other industry examples. We do a lot of partnership facilitation and convening, which supports partnerships with innovators and mobile operators, as well as innovators in public sector. And we also provide technical advisory across the stakeholders we work with. If we just move on to the next slide, we'll speak a little bit about our GSMA Innovation Fund. So the GSMA Innovation Fund broadly supports innovative digital solutions in emerging markets. And we've actually been running these innovation funds for 10 years on a multitude of topics within mobile for development. And for those of you who are familiar with the past work of the Mobile for Development Utilities Program, now it's Digital Utilities, you will know that we've been running innovation funds since 2012 on the topics of energy, water, sanitation. So if we go to the next slide, we'll dig into the details of this present innovation fund, the Innovation Fund for Digital Urban Services. The objective of this fund is really to test, scale, and extract insights from innovative urban services that are inclusive and impactful. So I think it's important to understand here why we're focusing on urban services. Well, it's because urban services such as energy, water, sanitation, and plastic and waste management are essential to the well-being of city dwellers and the resilience of cities, and particularly amidst a changing climate. And while we know there's been this historic rise in mobile connectivity in low-income countries, particularly in cities, there are billions of people without access to basic services. The factor here is the rapidly expanding informal settlements across Africa and Asia. We know that 80% of global urban growth in 2050 is going to be concentrated in these regions. And amidst that, those expanding informal settlements, we have these persistent challenges of water shortages, unsanitary conditions, unreliable power provision, and inadequate waste management. And so to tackle these challenges, the local private sector can play an important role in leveraging digital technology and working with mobile operators and the public sector to really deliver sustainable and equitable services. So you can see here the 4 areas that this fund covers. And we really, for the reasons that I've outlined, feel that these are really essential to improving lives in urban areas. So if we go on to the next slide, we can start getting into the depths of what does the fund look like. So to share the objective of our innovation fund, we aim to demonstrate a few things. Firstly, how digital technology, including mobile, can support and scale the delivery of urban services to underserved populations. And what's important is that this demonstrates socio-economic, commercial, and environmental or climate impact of digital urban services. We're also very interested in better understanding the business and or partnership models required to enable these digital urban services, and particularly in getting to scale. And finally, honing in on a key area of interest for us as the GSMA is really how partnerships with mobile operators, as well as other technology companies, can improve the scale and sustainability of digital urban services. So just to share a little bit about the support that we'll be providing to grantees through the Innovation Fund. Grantees will be provided with grants between £100,000 and £250,000, depending on what's in their proposal, And this will support projects for over 15 to 18 months. It's also important to highlight that there's a matching component required as part of these grants. And here, before I go any further, I would encourage you all for the details to look into the terms and conditions available on our website. There's also, alongside that, there's a frequently asked questions document. And you'll find there's a really helpful report on all of these areas that we're discussing in a series of webinars this week, looking at what topics we think need more evidence and we're interested in funding through this fund. So moving along, the other thing the fund includes is boot camps and regular online clinics on topics such as product or service improvement, human-centered design, and usability testing. Learning exchange opportunities with other grantees and networking opportunities with other GSMA partners. Monitoring and evaluation to support evidence of socio-economic impact and to promote product improvement. Facilitation of relationships with mobile operators and public sector organizations. And then, of course, the opportunity to increase your visibility and raising your profile to potential investors or partners through the work of the GSMA. So if we go on here, we'll see that, get to the next slide. There we go. I want to just highlight some of the key eligibility criteria for the fund. But again, before I go on, it's really important that everybody who's interested take a very close read of the terms and conditions, which are on the website, and the frequently asked questions document, as well as the report there. But to give you an overview, the eligible organizations for this innovation fund are startups, small to medium-sized private sector companies, and social enterprises. And they need to be able to demonstrate the long-term sustainability and scalability of the innovation beyond the lifespan of the grant. And finally, they need to have active users and revenue in at least one eligible low or middle income market. I should underscore here that the revenue doesn't necessarily have to come from the piece that's being presented in the grant application. It could be from another part of the business, but the company needs to already be getting some kind of revenue in one of their markets. So the types, there are some organizations that unfortunately are not eligible to apply to the fund, but can be involved as partners. So this includes governments or appointed government agencies, mobile network operators, university or academic organizations, startup accelerators, and incubators. And again, they can't directly apply, though they may be involved as partners. And you can read more information about this in the terms and conditions, where there's some information about downstream partners. As to the geography, we're looking for proposals from low and middle income countries in Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. There are a few countries within those regions that are unfortunately excluded. And so again, it's really important to see the terms and conditions for the fund. If we just move to our last couple of slides here. Just to give you an overview of some key dates for the Innovation Fund, we opened the fund on the 17th of May. Last week, we had our first webinar to really just go over the some of what I've just shared, but in a little bit more depth around the eligibility and the criteria and the application process. And if you want to hear a recording of that webinar, it's on the website. And this week, what we've been doing is having 1-hour sessions on each of the sector topics. And the objective here is to really identify what we've understood to be the challenges, what are some of the use cases for digital tools, a lot based on some of the things we've funded in the past, and then also looking at that, what do we need to still learn or achieve? And that informs some of our interest for the fund in terms of what kinds of proposals that we're interested in seeing. Though I would say we're very aware there's a range of innovations that we don't know of beyond just the areas we've identified. So those are also eligible and perfectly welcome. Then the key important date for people to know about is that the 2nd of July is when applications for the fund close. So please make sure to start working on your proposals now, as time is running short already. And the proposal stage will come after this. So there will be a number of organizations shortlisted to move to the next stage, the proposal stage, and they'll develop their more in-depth proposal between the 2nd of August and the 5th of November. And this includes a technical proposal, an implementation plan, and a budget. And we don't have all the details of this up here because it would be a little too much to absorb at this stage, but the big picture is that the final selections will be made in late November with contracting completed by March 2022. So that's an overview of the dates. I think that's about it for me. So what I want to do now is hand over to my colleague, Lemma, who's going to give us an introduction to digital solutions in the urban energy space. And then we'll moderate a panel that we have. So over to you, Lemma.
Okay, thank you, Ilana. So I'm just going to share a few slides on energy. So on the next slide, we'll just talk about the energy challenge and some critical sector challenges that we've seen, as well as the use of digital solutions to deliver energy. So according to the World Bank, over 600 million people are expected to still be without electricity in 2030. And due to rapid urbanization and the growth of informal settlements, which are often cut off from the national electricity grid, low-income households are particularly affected by unreliable energy access. Some critical sector challenges include the following. So since urban access to energy in least developed countries significantly exceeds access levels in rural areas, many donors and policies aiming to achieve SDG 7 focus on extending access to electricity to rural off-grid communities only. However, due to rising energy demand in cities across developing countries, additional attention needs to be placed on urban energy provision. Also, for many households in cities in developing countries, energy is unaffordable and unreliable, and many of those without a reliable electricity still use kerosene and diesel generators, at least as backup systems during power outages. Lack of planning by authorities puts several countries at risk of not only failing to meet SDG 7, but also depressing the economic potential of emerging cities. Thirdly, around 3 billion people worldwide have no access to clean fuels or technologies for cooking, relying instead on burning biomass or solid fuels on open fires or inefficient stoves. The consequences include deforestation, black carbon emissions, and widespread human exposure to harmful indoor pollution. SC for All estimates that $4 billion is required annually to ensure universal access to cleaner cooking options. And lastly, developing countries stand to benefit significantly from cost-effective, innovative solutions such as e-bikes. However, governments need to facilitate e-mobility solutions through policies, regulations, standards for charging, and basic consumer protection frameworks with low fiscal costs. So just to talk a little bit about how digital solutions can improve service delivery. Digital solutions can unlock new business models that complement grid services or make new energy solutions viable for low-income populations to live healthy and productive lives. Mobile and safe energy services affordable for low-income households and small businesses through smaller installments. Pay-as-you-go solar is a very good example of that. And finally, digital solutions enable real-time remote monitoring to maintain and optimize services to provide them reliably and efficiently. On the next slide, we'll just speak a bit about some applications of digital solutions in energy. So I mentioned pay-as-you-go business models where pay-as-you-go enables low-income customers to make micropayments and guarantee revenue collection for providers. Similarly, IoT and machine-to-machine connectivity is another use case where smart monitoring of system performance can improve operational efficiency and are essential technologies in the deployment of real-time data systems. And they also improved data can contribute to better service monitoring and planning. And where smartphones are not accessible, voice, SMS, and USSD functions are very critical and enable communication between utilities and customers. And they are also essential for maintaining service quality and provision of timely service. And finally, big data, AI, and machine learning. The use of large data sets to improve decision making is critical, and they also enable implementation of automation to optimize operations. Finally, on the last slide, just to give you a quick overview of what our program has done in energy in the past. So the program has supported 30 energy grantees across 20 countries over the last couple of years. And these grantees have provided pay-as-you-go solar, connecting to mobile payments, smart on-the-grid metering, machine-to-machine connectivity. And these companies have gone on to raise additional funding of 205 million pounds, which is really, really encouraging. So for the upcoming round of Innovation Fund, these are some of the areas that we are looking at. As Ilana mentioned, there are a lot of innovations that we don't know about. So looking forward to receiving, those in proposals. But broadly, we want to support the replication and expansion of digitally enabled clean cooking, which includes pay-as-you-go, LPG, electric cooking. We also want to explore the role of digital solutions to drive innovative electric mobility services through battery monitoring and optimizing logistics. Similarly, we want to test and scale generation or storage solutions for urban small enterprises to replace diesel generators. And finally, we want to test and scale synergistic models between energy service providers and mobile operators. Now, on the next part of the session, we are going into a panel discussion. So I'm just going to ask the speakers to turn on their videos, and we are going to stop presenting the slides. But basically, we have speakers from, I'm joined by Andron Mendes. Andron, if you can turn on your video. Andron Mendes, who is a co-founder and CFO of Copagas. Welcome, Andron. We also have Emma Stevenson, who is a Sustainable Mobility Lead at Shell Foundation. Welcome, Emma.
Thanks.
And finally, we have Daniel Kitwa, who is the Manager for Energy, Climate Change, and Agriculture Practice at Intellicap. Thank you all for joining us. And Andron, if you can hear us.
Yes, sir.
Andron, if you can hear us, just to get started. Yeah, just to get started. So, okay, given that the share of the global population with access to clean cooking solutions has increased slowly from 56% in 2010 to just 63% in 2018, leaving approximately 2.8 billion people without access to clean cooking. With your company being in this space, could you tell us how Copagas is addressing the clean cooking challenge, and also just share with us the trends that you are seeing in digital innovations, in the LPG clean cooking sector, as well as the lessons that you've learned from successfully implementing these solutions in different countries.
Thank you, Emma. So at Copagas, we've seen the gap in the clean cooking sector. As you just mentioned, that over billions of people are struggling with cooking. Copagas provides a pay-as-you-go solution on LPG. We come from the background that we've seen people are finding difficult to pay the initial upfront investment of LPG, which like here in Tanzania is around $100 to $150 for the first kit, which means LPG stove and LPG cylinder and the gas in the tank. So this is a lot of money for people who are earning less than $200 a month. So we saw that gap and decided to develop a smart meter that is installed on top of the LPG cylinder. And our business is to lease the LPG cylinder that has been incorporated with a smart meter to these low-income families. So the solution enables the customer to access gas the way they are accessing charcoal today, because in the charcoal they just pay in like it's a per day purchase. They have $1, $2, they just purchase for a specific day. Instead of the current LPG model where in the traditional beds, people are buying a full tank, which means like a refill of around $20 to $30.
Sorry to interrupt you, Andron. The audio is a bit not clear. Maybe speak closer to the mic.
So at Copagas, we provide access to LPG or the pay-as-you-go model. Our solution enables customers to access gas similar way they are accessing charcoal today, because in charcoal, normally they pay on per day terms. A family which is earning less than less than $200 a month, they just have money to buy gas on their budgets. So we provide the solution. So we come from a background that we realize LPG in the traditional model is very hard to scale and reach millions of people, because a lot of low-income families, they don't have money to make the upfront investment. Our study also found that some of these people, they also not able to buy gas when their cylinder goes down. So that's why we are offering a pay-as-you-go solution. We started in 2015 through a grant. We also a beneficiary of the GSMA grants, the mobile for development duty. And then in 2015, the grant helped us to develop the first prototype of our meters. And then our business continued growing. We succeeded closing a relationship with MNOs in Tanzania, who helped us to test the model. We signed a deal with an LPG provider in the country to be able to succeed like in connecting thousands of customers. And then so we over the time the solution is acceptable worldwide. We now have an operation in Kenya. We have over 40,000 customers as we speak today. So we see the growth is possible. In Kenya, we are targeting to reach 500,000 end of the year. So there is a big on the pay-as-you-go model.
Okay. Thank you, Anron. The audio is a bit difficult, but if you can just mute your mic, that'll be great. But thank you for sharing how Copagas has made LPG accessible to low-income households that could not afford the initial cost of the cylinder and gas. And so you've successfully been able to use smart meters on the pay-as-you-go model, which enables customers to lease the gas cylinder and pay for gas in small installments. Daniel, so Andron has shared those trends in LPG cooking with us. Could you expand a bit more on other trends that you see in urban energy, and how digital tools play a role in enabling these innovations and business models, specifically on the urban sector? And you can also just speak about the challenges and opportunities around implementing these solutions in low-income households in urban areas. I think you're on mute. Can't hear you. Okay, I think I'll as you sort out the audio, let me jump to Emma and transition to a bit on electric. So Emma, Shell Foundation has a lot of lessons around testing new solutions on electric mobility. And we've also seen new developments in this sector, over the last couple of months, including, large hailing taxi company providers shifting to electric motorbikes for their deliveries, as well as increased funding in countries like Kenya. We've seen projects, for example, in Kampala, where electric motorbikes are being tested through funding, by the likes of UNDP and International Energy Agency. So there seems to be a lot happening over the last couple of months, and it's an interesting space. From your experience, could you describe just how the sector is going, what trends you're seeing, what are the opportunities and challenges, and also just to describe the role of digital technology in enabling the sector?
Yeah, no problem. Just checking you can hear me okay.
All yes, good. Clearly.
Yeah, so I'm really excited by this opportunity because the last time I was in East Africa was over a year ago now, with obviously the COVID restrictions, and within this last year I've seen a lot of new companies pop up and really a lot of innovations pop up as well in this sector. So it's an exciting area to be involved in. I'll just give a bit of context to Shell Foundation. So I'm the Sustainable Mobility Lead for Shell Foundation, and our approach is essentially we're an independent UK registered charity that support global development challenges through both energy and mobility solutions. So our portfolio spans across sub-Saharan Africa and India, and typically we work with pioneers and innovators of early stage enterprises and support them to scale up their solutions for the low income sector. And in supporting those entrepreneurs to scale, we identify with them the market barriers that they face and the challenges that they face in trying to implement their solutions, really looking at how our program can help to support overcome some of those barriers, like policy and enabling environment solutions that we can discuss a bit more. So our actual sustainable mobility program itself is focused on expanding affordable access to cleaner mobility solutions for low-income communities. And this cleaner piece is about reducing carbon footprint per passenger served, and also looking for solutions to improve efficiencies in the overall mobility system, which is a particular area where digital innovation can play a role. And when we think about, the why do we do this? Well, we know that in South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, these are the regions that have the highest exposure to air pollution. So there's huge health benefits in transitioning to cleaner technology solutions. But also from the urban point of view, there's, in the African continent, about 1.5 million people urbanizing every month over the next 10 years. So we know that there's a huge, rate of urbanization happening, and solutions have to be thought through on a system level, really to ensure that it's equitable transition, that we help increase women's participation in the labour market through solutions that are developed, and really support sustainable solutions to scale. One of the things just to reflect on is, I think if we take Rwanda as an example, there's really a recognition there about the transition to cleaner mobility and going after it as a big opportunity. So they've announced actually recently that they're going to approve the industrial electricity tariff for charge stations for electric vehicles. And that actually, it equates to, the cost of charge at about 1/3 of what it used to be. And this actually really enables electric vehicle hardware companies' business models to take off and scale. And so supporting and enabling sort of regulation and policy can play a big factor in this particular sector. And we know obviously the integrated nature of cleaner mobility solutions will require more collaboration between energy and mobility players. And so it's interesting to see, some of these collaborations already start when we think about renewable energy solutions for charging of cleaner mobility assets. On a country level, countries like Uganda and Kenya already have over 90% of renewables on the grid. And so it makes the case for electric mobility solutions from an environmental point of view net positive and a really strong case. We've seen through the work that we've done with GIZ and others in the Africa Mobility Accelerator that we've been running. We've seen a number of these early stage electric vehicle sort of innovators come through, and we've learned how important the need for catalytic grant funding is to de-risk this market entry and also to test different business models in the process. And we're also in Shell Foundation considering partnerships between asset financing companies and hardware providers to try to accelerate scale. And really, I think there's an opportunity when it comes to digital innovation for layering of more efficient mobility systems, so that we don't just think about the transition to cleaner technology as a hardware swap solution, but actually as an integrated solution. And that's where digital innovations can really play a role. So I'll stop there for now, but in terms of the opportunities, there are certainly many, and this layering of solutions is where we see many of the opportunities. And I think, Lima, in your introduction, you also mentioned about the opportunities for smart monitoring of systems in terms of battery management system monitoring, payment services, data sets to improve decision making. All of this is hugely relevant for that sector as well.
Thank you, Emma, for those insights. You've touched on the innovation, the role of government, catalytic funding, and the need for partnerships, with asset financing and also development of integrated solutions. Just in terms of taking the sector forward, where do you see areas of collaboration between innovators themselves? So just so that, it's not just one innovator doing their own thing and, the others doing something else. Do you see areas of collaboration that can really push the ecosystem forward?
Yeah, I do. And I see that in a number of different ways. So I think if we think about each early stage sort of intervention that's happening at the moment, and even reflect on the energy sector to how other areas like solar home systems evolved over the last 10 years, companies started out as fully vertically integrated solutions where they managed all of the touch point with customers. They integrated their asset financing, their monitoring, the hardware, everything was kind of covered by one. And what we've seen over the years is that disintegrates and that there's specialities that kind of emerge. And so in the area of electric vehicle provision, there's opportunities to learn from that and already start to look at where providers and where companies can leverage each other's strengths. So where can partnerships between the asset financing and the hardware side make sense? Where can collaboration, even with existing pay-go companies, that are considering additional asset offerings, to their customers, where can we even consider expansion of those services to include topics like e-mobility solutions, and also even in terms of the integration with existing energy infrastructure, there's opportunities for that too. And I think the data that can be provided by the monitoring and the digital solution side can help inform players and governments where to locate charge infrastructure, how to actually plan effectively for what is best for the consumer. So I think really having a focus on a user-centric approach to this is hopefully going to result in the best outcome. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for various collaboration and also even amongst the impact investing community that I can touch on a little bit later.
Thank you so much. Very interesting to see the parallels with the pay-as-you-go solar industry with all the knowledge on asset financing and also integrations into the financial and electricity infrastructure as well as on data. Daniel, hopefully we can hear you now. But just coming back to you on your role, with your role at Intellicap and also your experience across the energy sector in Africa. Could you just share with us how you see urban energy in terms of new innovations and applications of digital tools, and just some examples that are promising, as well as how these innovators can collaborate with utilities as well as with other government that are relevant to the sector?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Great.
clearly.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'll just build on just what Em has mentioned. Ideally, when you're looking at opportunities and trends, I think, obviously, the fact that, the urbanization sort of rate is growing. There's need obviously to, first of all, as innovators, as partners, as government, not only to plan for the current urban market, but even the future urban market. And what from where I sit, I think there are a number of trends happening in various touch points in the energy sector. For example, when you look at from the consumption side, we've seen a clear move towards self-generation in some of the commercial customers. For example, in markets like Kenya, where the commercial load is around 54% of the total consumption, we're seeing a lot of self-generation, obviously because of the the economics of solar PV and other sort of critical capex aspects. So we are seeing a lot of that, and that also triggers the need for energy audits, smart metering, and even planning within the production capacities of those entities. With respect to other areas, we are seeing also that is triggering the need to focus on energy efficiency, and that also there's the need to be able to understand what that outlay looks like. So we're seeing a lot of the use of data to understand what is the current sort of level of consumption and the level of efficiency and what can be done, for example, to optimize energy usage. We are seeing also a rise, or rather sort of in the first sort of steps of seeing a lot of interconnected mini grids happening, or integrated mini grids in markets like Nigeria. So I think that also can also be a an indicator of potential collaborations between mini grid developers and regulators, and even the public utilities. And with obviously when it comes to integration, there's a lot of data technology and digital technologies rather playing and acting as an enabler between those parties involved in that sort of infrastructure. I wouldn't belabor on electric mobility, because I think Emma has quite mentioned that, and I think also that's a trend to watch for sure. And just to keep an eye on also is things happening within, especially the two-wheeler segment, which happens to touch a lot on the bottom of the pyramid, and that's where the new sort of peri-urban hubs are coming up. So I think there's a lot of use case for e-mobility in that regard, and also the use for technology as an enabler. Maybe just to mention, I think in terms of just to circle back on opportunities, I think there's need to look at the need to align incentives, and this can happen especially with respect to regulation. So we are seeing, for example, in markets like Nigeria, there's a lot of focus by the regulator there to try as much as to push the distribution companies or the public utilities to to go towards smart metering as a trigger for them to be able to have service level tariffs. Because traditionally tariffs have been quite subsidized, and with indicators that some of these subsidies might not be there forever. I think there's also a need to sort of focus first on customer service before as also as a value proposition for pricing. So in that regard, obviously the use of this is playing a role in terms of enabling utilities figure out how to better serve their consumers and also improve customer service. So I think I'll maybe pause there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel. That was very, very insightful and comprehensive. And you've shared with us some really important points on urban energy and what is coming up, as well as the requirements for moving forward. I'll come back to you, but just Andron, on the importance of partnerships, and for Copagas, mobile operator partnership has been really important for your growth. Could you just speak a little bit about the evolution of that MNO partnership when you started and where you are now?
Yeah, thanks. So we started as a partner to MNO because once we started the business, at the time we started the business, we approached the MNO that for the pay-as-you-go LPG to work, we need some sort of integration with their platform to enable our customers being able to pay. So we approached the different MNOs in the country. We succeeded getting the integration, because for the MNO, the critical thing they're looking is if the business will be able to grow, because for them, spending time with a startup like for integration, it's costing money to the business. So we managed to promise them that over the time the business will be growing, and we're gonna attract a lot of customers in the platform, and then you'll be
seems to be having a challenge.
So we continue engaging. So we continue engaging the MNO after the business is started. Continue telling them, having a session with them, what this copper gas mean, and how it's going to be able to grow. There was a continue session with the MNO in country. So that helped us a lot to kind of knowing the directions of the technology, because they are the key partner in our pay-as-you-go LPG. And through this kind of discussion, we also learned some sort of opportunities in the space, and what MNOs are thinking, especially on the mass market of LPG. So at some point, we were approached by one of the MNO to develop some sort of a special service for the LPG traditional business, which was outside our scope. So we realized MNO, they are looking into this LPG because it's a mass market solution. So that gave us an opportunity to continue engaging with them. So from being a technology partner with MNO, we even succeeded to close a transaction, of which one of the biggest MNO in Kenya was part of the investment in the company. So it's because of the opportunity. For MNO, what they look is just the numbers. If there is a potential for the business to reach millions of customers, because this is what they are looking for.
Okay. Thank you so much. And very good to see that evolution from infrastructure integration to a more mature investor type of partnership with the MNO. Thank you for your questions. I can see my colleagues are answering them, through the chat. So we'll just keep going with the panel. Emma, just coming back to you on the role of partnerships. Partnerships, especially between the government and the private sector, in terms of moving e-mobility forward. We mentioned the role of policy, setting standards. And you've mentioned, some countries that are already, aware of the need to align those incentives for the sector.
Yeah, I think that the role of partnerships between kind of government and the private sector is really important, and the feedback of, especially even kind of through COVID, we've seen sort of how sudden changes in policy and regulation can really have quite a significant impact on sectors like the mobility sector. And I think it's important that feedback is there, and that there's a voice for the private sector and a mechanism for them to come together and share what opportunities they see, and also that the areas of challenge that they've got at the minute that regulation can actually potentially unlock. And we do see, in terms of some of the deep dives we've done on this in Kampala, for example, that organizations like the KCCA, for example, being forward thinking in how they're actually collaborating with the private sector and looking at testing and piloting solutions. So I think that's one way that they can work together, in that they don't have to have everything figured out right from the start, but they can actually pilot and work together to test regulation, to test what is being considered before it gets rolled out more officially. I think also the other piece is about market enablers playing a role here. We've seen the emergence of some market enabling solutions across East Africa, where there's convenings taking place across e-mobility companies, for example, to discuss things like the end of life use, for the energy storage solution. So is there a second life application in solar home systems, for example, once the first life application of an electric vehicle has been used, and actually does that improve the economics for the company? And does it help, from an environmental point of view with reducing of waste at the end of the day? So there's points like that, points around how charge infrastructure sites would be selected, and digital innovations can help to inform those decisions. The big data point we discussed before can help inform and enable governments to make decisions and work with the private sector, so that the infrastructure to support the transition is clear, and that actually reduces the risk from a consumer adoption point of view. So things like range anxiety become less of an issue once the infrastructure has been clearly mapped out and how that's going to happen. So I do think there's a lot of opportunities there. There's also opportunities for the investor kind of community to come together behind this as well, in thinking through what are the sector level challenges, what are the gaps in funding types that are available for enterprises to scale up in this area, and also really just on the ecosystem level opportunities that I mentioned before around even across hardware solutions, software and payment systems. So yeah, that's some of the opportunities that we see.
Great, thank you. So Daniel, just coming back to you on those partnerships, and you mentioned some partnerships that are already in place, for example, on mini grid providers and utilities, as well as the role of regulation, like in markets like in Nigeria. And I think there is probably some perception of, let's say, friction, for example, between the big energy providers in countries like Kenya, for example, Nairobi. And how do you see that partnership working out effectively in terms of the new energy innovators working effectively with utilities?
I think partnership, is the right approach. I think when you look at both the utility and maybe other private generators or distributors, I think the challenge has been in some markets where you find that what that friction you're pointing or alluding to arising in is how the maybe the utility perceives its role, and maybe even the other sort of IPPs. So I think there's need also to look at maybe other services the utility can possibly offer with respect to consumers, and those other services can also trigger partnerships. So for example, there's need, for example, as Emma had mentioned, with the growth of emerging energy transportation solutions around e-mobility, there's potential to look at enhancing the grid network or grid stability, because as more and more charging infrastructure assets come into the network, obviously there's more demand uptake. So that's possibly a role even utilities can offer, maybe as part of a partner in that sort of package. I think also there is need to even as the utility looks at the future, maybe exploring the solutions within the decentralized energy options. So we have seen in some markets where through the partnerships with the public and private sector, you find even the rollout of mini grid tenders. I don't know how that can look maybe, for example, in urban markets, but I think there are also some countries where even the electrification rate in the urban region is way below 50% or so there's possibly need to look at maybe decentralization in those urban regions. I can even point to examples like markets like DRC. So I think there is obviously the opportunities to actually partner rather than compete, or even rather than have friction between different service providers, because ultimately that benefits the consumer.
Okay, thank you so much. So I can see we have 4 minutes to the top of the hour. I'll hand over shortly to my colleague Ilana just for closing remarks and answer any unanswered questions from the attendees. But just giving each one of you a minute or less, starting with Andron, then Emma, then Daniel. What advice would you give to innovators, that are seeking to apply for this fund? Andron, starting with you. Shortly, yeah.
I think for me, I'll advise the innovators to first of all check if their concepts, if the concept is scalable. I think once you're able to have a concept that is scalable, I think funding is not a challenge, because GSMA funding helps to kickstart, but then there is a lot of opportunity to attract VC, even other investors to come in and put money in the business. So unit economics is very critical as you are looking to start a business.
Yeah, fully agree with that point. And I think having a customer focus from the start is really important. And if I think about that in terms of inclusivity, there's an opportunity with new technology types coming in to think about increased inclusion, for example, gender inclusion. When it comes to electric vehicles, they're less vibrations, less energy intensive to actually operate, and actually could open up a whole new market segment for companies that think creatively on this. So it's about thinking about the customer first, and also about being inclusive in the solutions that are being developed, as well as the economics and how things are going to scale beyond the pilot stage.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, I think I'm totally agreeing with all those. Networking, partnership with, looking at unit economics, I think, and focusing on the customer. What I can say is also, there's, for potential innovators in this call, maybe to also take advantage of the pool that would be, within the GSMA network and other, previous pools, even to unlock more collaborations. So it's never too early as a startup to think about partnerships, and I think possibly it's much easier, earlier than maybe when you've sort of emotionally invested in in a specific line of thought to sort of change. So I think opportunity to collaborate even as early as now with other innovators in the call, and could be and also cross markets could be a potential winner for them. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Emma, Daniel, Andron, for your insights and for your time. I would like now to hand over to Ilana to answer any unanswered questions and also to close.
Thanks, Emma, and a big hearty thanks to all of our speakers. We really appreciate your time and your thoughts. Really helpful and great food for thought for everybody on this webinar. So thank you, Emma. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Andron. We really appreciate it. We're just at the end of our hour, so I don't think I'll take up, and most of the questions have been answered in the chat. If we haven't answered your question, you can email us at gsmaif@gsma.com. There is one question that I'll make 30 seconds to answer here, which was about how do we rate the application. Is it based on market size, data usage, GSM operators, capability, data costs, or application of innovation? It's what I would say at a high level is how we look at proposals is we consider three things, and it's more complex than that, but three broad things, which is the impact, what we'll learn about the innovation, and the feasibility. So at a high level, those are three of the main areas where we look when we look at proposals. But we are out of time, so I just want to point everybody to the materials for the fund. So those are all on our website that you see there, gsma.com/digital urban services. That's where the terms and conditions are, as well as the form to apply. And I want to remind you about checking out the frequently asked questions. And again, there's the email if you do have further questions. We really appreciate all of your time and great questions today. And again, the contributions from our speakers. So thank you everyone so much, and we'll close there. Have a great day. Bye-bye.